Now, if someone wouldn't mind pulling with their phone and giving me a timer, I'll try and do 3 shots, see how we do. Now, once again, for the folks who didn't hear, a trained marksman can get off 3 shots in 1 minute. That's about 15 to 30 seconds to load and fire the weapon at full speed. Now, during the heat of combat, of course, you don't want to be giving out each one of those 9 commands, so you're going to shorten all that down to commence fire and cease fire. All right. For the detachment, commence fire. The big problem with carrying these guys in the teeth is that sometimes you do get a mouthful of gunpowder. So it's not as good as you think it does. Very earthy. Whoops. See, get it all out. Fire. All right. How'd we do? By,
About 1 minute and 22.
minute 22, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's
Usually the
not
first 2 you got off around 26 seconds each.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's very good.
So let me ask you something though. If you think about, if you're on the battlefield and you got to do that, you're obviously going to be uptight. You're not totally calm.
Right.
And I can see where at every one of those steps, how easy it would be to get something wrong if you were nervous, especially putting that. What do you call it? The rod?
The
Is
ramp.
it-
Yeah, the
That ramp?
right.
How, that's got to be pretty. I mean, what is the diameter of that thing?
It's not too wide. I mean, it fits about the diameter of the barrel, probably about an inch. The barrel's probably about an inch, so this guy's probably about.
That just in and of itself would be so hard to do if you're uptight,
Oh yeah.
because your hands might be shaking.
Yeah, and you also have to combine all that with people around you shooting, so you're losing your hearing.
That's what I was just saying.
Being shot at. So yeah. Thanks everyone for joining us once again with Jackson. This is going to be a very brief short history. Then I'm going to fire off the 12-pound mountain hounds for you guys. See how loud this is. So you can think of your AirPods out. Your AirPods out now. And let's put them in. See if this Alright, so this fortification was the first phase. The fortification was constructed in 1808. If you look right here to the left of the cannon, you can see the original 1808 wall. You can see the difference between these bricks right here and then these bricks right here, which are far older. This was added right here in 1843 during the Mexican-American War. This is by Thomas Jefferson's administration. Defending against the naval invasion from the south. During the Revolutionary War, the American Revolution had lost quite a devastating battle down here, known as the Siege of Savannah. I won't go into detail there. We do have quite a comprehensive seminar about it at the Savannah History Museum on the weekends there. So the fort was built 1808. This wall, here, would have been a wooden wall. The wooden barracks would have also stood in a U shape, sort of starting to run here and about to U. The walls are not designed to keep out any intruders, but more to keep out snakes and gators and such, just as a deterrent against any creature in the swamp. Now, before we bought the swamp and got rid of a lot of the mosquitoes were quite bad here. As everyone I'm sure knows, mosquitoes spread malaria. Now, they didn't know that at the time. They believed that malaria was spread through a thing known as miasma, or the bad smell. It smells bad. All of a sudden you have malaria. It must be those two things. You're not gonna think, you won't think about that little tiny incident that you earlier. Okay. So the wire will be quite it will be our famous Italian taker, and a very bad makes this area very bad to be stationed here because you're gonna get a lot of mosquitoes be biting you. Back then they were again a lot thicker, a lot more dense. They were described as thick black clouds of death. Nowadays, even in July, they are quite bad, but nowhere near as bad. I've come home with 60 bites coming down my legs. They do get quite rough out here. Now it was finished around 1812. Just in time for the War of 1812. The British had a plan to try and retake Savannah. That had worked very well for them during the Revolutionary War. So they wanted to try and redo their luck. They sailed 2 British warships up the river, saw the fort was here, and then turned around and ran away. They didn't know it was here, and they didn't want to fight with it, so it succeeded in being a deterrent against the British. They landed in St. Augustine and had plans to do a land invasion of the city, but the war ended before that could happen, so we avoided any conflict there. Because of the mosquitoes, they didn't want to keep anyone out here, so they just hired one caretaker to kind of keep staying here and make sure no one comes down and burns the place down. And eventually he was fired, and then people came in and burned the place down. Yeah, the one guy you hire, you get rid of. Classic stuff. They burned down the wooden barracks as well as parts of the wooden walls, and left the fort in quite the state of disrepair. Now, eventually, the Mexican-American War will kick off in the 1840s, and America was a bit worried that they might try and do a naval invasion of Florida and sort of terrorize the South that way. So they commissioned a thing known as the Third System Fortifications. These are 43 brand new forts located up and down the East Coast. Most of them are going to be in the Gulf, and 3 of them are going to be in the West Coast. Has anyone here been to Fort Pulaski by any chance? Yeah. Very nice. Okay. Well, you guys can test how big it is. It is a much larger fort than this. We are about 2 acres here, and 2 of us can squarely fit into Fort Pulaski. We have about 10 gun ports, at most 10 gun ports, and they have 150. We could have 150 men stationed here, and they could have 1,000. So it is much more scaled up. These earlier fort systems were characterized by the engineer who was building them, so they're a bit hit or miss. But the Third System fortifications have a set of rules, have a set of regulations. They have to be a certain size, certain weight to them. So they are a bit more standard, a bit stronger overall. Now, while building that fortification, they came back and re-examined this spot. After all, we are in a very good spot. This is the narrowest point of the Savannah River. So if you ever see another cargo ship pass by, you see it just up close they have to get to us. It is almost point-blank range, and it is very hard to miss a cannon at that range. We are also only 3 miles away from Savannah, so we can easily reinforce the city if need be. So they came over here. They tore down the old wooden dilapidated walls, and they built this beautiful brick wall. They also built 2 brick barracks that would have stood in these 2 footprints right here. Each can hold 75 men. In the back half of the barracks, we have the kitchen and cantina. If you look over by the map on the left side, you can see, I don't know if you can see it right now, but you can see, if you walk over there, the foundation left over from the ovens that were over there. So we do have that left from the original building, quite likely. They also built some latrines that are attached to the moat. Whenever the tide comes in, the bathroom, the latrines fill with water. Whenever the tide comes out, they suck out all the waste into the ocean. Sort of a modern, or a relatively modern, self-flushing toilet. They also built our powder magazine in 1850. That is going to be our film room nowadays. The original powder magazine, the 1812 one, is going to be under the stairs there, that green door. I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but under the stairs. So they just moved it over to there. They also had a pulley system that they could hoist up any gunpowder, so that the gun crew up here did not have to come down the stairs and grab the gunpowder and walk up the stairs with it. They were able to sort of shift it directly up to the balcony to the surface there. Now, they were going to build 2 officers' barracks, which are located on those 2 footprints right there. However, the Civil War was on the horizon, and the Northern engineers did not want to build it for the South, so they, drug their feet, and then eventually walked off and they left. So South Carolina, which is about 600 yards away, we definitely pose a threat to them, as we are, Georgia owned, of course. We are located in Georgia. South Carolina is going to be around for the first group of seceding states. Georgia had to make up their mind. They were still voting on it, and they would join a month later. But South Carolina does not want to wait for this obvious threat to them to make up their mind. So they decided to go ahead and take matters into their own hands and take the fort by force. So they sent 12 men across the Savannah River and snapped the fort without any fight. There was one caretaker here that I'm sure upon seeing 12 angry men arrive, he did not want to go much of a fight and gave up the game. The same thing would happen for Pulaski. 50 men would go over to that one, and there were 2 men guarding, 1 soldier, 1 caretaker. Same story, they don't want to fight off 50 armed men. Now, does anyone know what the Anaconda Plan is? Yes, ma'am.
It's where they blockaded all of the ports.
Yes.
Keep food, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So this is going
to...
Exactly. This is going to be the general war strategy for the North. They're going to blockade the South and sort of slowly strangle the South's resources. The South is a primarily agricultural society. They don't have many factories to speak of. So whatever weapons they have for the start of the war is going to be the weapons they have for the entirety of the war. Unless, of course, they can trade it with foreign countries like Britain and France. You can't trade if you don't have a coast. You can't trade, at least via ports, you don't have a coast. And so you can slowly win a war once they run out of arms and equipment and men. Now, to control the coast, you have to control the forts on the coast, and that sets the Union's eyes squarely on Fort Pulaski. Now, once again, large forts considered to be untakeable at the time by any modern army. However, what the South did not know was that the North had just invented a new thing called rifled cannons. We don't have any here, unfortunately, but rifling a cannon is whenever you introduce a groove inside of the smooth bore of a barrel. It allows the shot to be a lot more snug, go a lot further, and a lot more accurately. So they were able to set up siege works on Tybee Island, just outside of range of Fort Pulaski's weapons, and fire shots into the fort that way. They're able to carve shapes into the walls, knocking down a portion, and then fire shots straight into the fortification. One of them landed right in front of the powder magazine, which at the time held about 40,000 pounds of gunpowder. If it had gone off, it would have made Fort Pulaski a national crater, not a national fort. So the Confederate general saw the situation was quite hopeless and surrendered the game. In this one considered to be untakeable fort, ends up falling in about 3 hours. That is one of the first steps towards the obsolescence of brick and mortar forts, as the new technologies are rising up, such as mortars, such as rifled cannons, making these quite useless. Finally, the invention of the airplane went to put a nail in my coffin and really get rid of forts entirely, at least brick and mortar forts. Now, Fort Pulaski is about 10 miles downriver from us. Back then, you could see the forts as they work these trees here. You can also see clearly the ocean. So we would, of course, be able to see that the Union have set up a blockade, and they also have taken the fort. Now, if Fort Pulaski can be taken in 3 hours, we don't stand much of a chance. Quite frankly, we were not up to snuff to the modern science, even back then. So we are going to be, there's going to be a lot of tension here during this time. Luckily, and somewhat unluckily for the city of Savannah, its main purpose is as a port town. And if you can control the mouth of the river, you can control the port. So you sort of neutralize the city of Savannah in the war regardless. So you don't really need to waste men and equipment trying to do a brazen naval invasion of the city. And that's kind of the way we go for the majority of the war. There would be sort of an awkward standoff. Occasionally the Union would send up 2 gunboats and sort of fire some loose volleys at this fort, but none of them actually make any purchase or do any real damage. Eventually, General Sherman will take over the city of Atlanta and had quite the brazen plan to end the war a couple of years early. This plan is now known as the March to the Sea. His plan is to take his 60,000 strong army, cut them off from their own supply lines, and sort of raise hell through the rural parts of Georgia, ending in Savannah. This army was considered to be the best fighting force in the world at the time. They are veterans of a brutal 3 years of combat in the West. They are eager beavers to take the fight to the heartland of rebellion. They only lost one battle in their campaign. That's going to be the Siege of Macon, and they were able to neutralize the city regardless by making the railroads tracks leading to the north and south of the city. Now, eventually they arrived upon the gates of Savannah and ordered the surrender of the city to the mayor. The mayor went over to the Confederate general and asked, "Can you guarantee our safety?" Of course, the mayor didn't want to get the city burned down, much like Glen had been burned down, much like many factories, many rural towns had been burned down. The Confederate general, who I guess was not a fool, examined the situation, realized he could not guarantee the city's safety, and so the mayor kicked them all out. They built some makeshift pontoon bridges on Hutchinson Island and onto South Carolina, and they escaped under the cover of darkness. They also used the CSS Savannah, an ironclad, part of the Savannah squadron, and they evacuated the men in these fortifications and around surrounding batteries outside of Savannah. The men here were ordered to spike the cannons, which is essentially you just drive a spike, you sort of turn it back, making the vent useless. You can't use it anymore, you can't repair it. They also threw a lot of cannonballs and ammunition into the moats, whatever they couldn't carry with them. We have an exhibit on the Simply Found moat on the case baits and exhibits there. They rigged the powder magazines to explode. They burned down the barracks, and finally they jammed the drawbridge stuck up. Now on Christmas Day, General Sherman marches into the city of Savannah and presents it as a Christmas gift to Abraham Lincoln, and he was able to take this fortification without any conflict. Now under American control, once again, they had plans to revamp the fortification, so that they tore down the old brick barracks that were now ruins because of the fire, and they were going to rebuild them, make them brand new. But much like many government projects will do, it does not end up coming to fruition. However, they do build one last thing, and that's going to be the 1873 powder magazine on top of the wall there. That is going to mark the last major government construction done here. Eventually the fort was left down to one caretaker once again, and much like history will always repeat itself, he was also let go. Luckily, no one came in and burned the place down, but what did happen is that the swamp decided to go ahead and swallow the fort. There is the Old Images of America book series. We have one in the gift shop. I recommend checking it out. It has a lot of pictures of the fort at this time. There is a forest growing in here. The swamp has completely inhaled the fort. From the river, you can't actually see the fortification, save for the very tip of it, as there is foliage and stuff blocking you from being able to brickwork. And that's how it would go for a lot of the majority of the time, except until the 1940s. At this point, the city of Savannah decided to sell the land to two private factories. That's why we have our two beautiful factories that surround us today. Now the walls of the fort are made of a thing called Savannah gray brick. This is a brick in which the clay, the mineral composition of the clay is wholly unique to Savannah, making it a fairly rare brick. It was also made in a plantation by the slaves there. They could not read or write, so they hadn't passed down the recipes for how to make it to the old tradition. And unfortunately, that tradition has died out. We don't actually know how to make it, making it incredibly rare. As you can tell, it's held up very well over the 200 odd years that it's been in service. Now, in the 1960s, there was a big push to start scrapping buildings made out of this brick. So they tore down a lot of historic buildings and sold them for scrap. That's going to be the plan for this fortification. The factories don't see any need to have it out here, so they're going to try and sell it for scrap. Luckily, the city of Savannah heard about this and stepped in and bought the land back. They then leased it out to us, the Coastal Air Society, and we have renovated it and showed it to you guys for your education and entertainment.
Entertainment.
Thank you. Good. Any questions about the fort history? Excellent. Well, we'll go ahead and move on to our 5 of our 12-pound bound houses. So this is a reproduction of the 12-pounder. That's going to be a weapon made in the 1840s. It's going to serve well in the Mexican-American War. But by the Civil War, it is still well within service and very much still a deadly killing machine. That guy right there is light artillery. Going to be used for more softer targets like infantry or cavalry. These guys on the wall are all examples of heavy artillery. Those guys are going to be your ship killers, your seizures, you know, the ones you're going to want to use against forts and such. We have our 24-pounder on the red carriage there. Back in the 1812 era, all the carriages were painted red, as well as the building. That's the artillery color. I don't know why they decided to build it in that color, but Saint Louis, I suppose. To the right of that, we have the 32-pounder right there. And then swinging all the way around, we have our 9-inch Dahlgren. Now, the Dahlgren is a naval ship. You would not find them on fortifications like this. That would have been a Columbiad, an 8-inch Columbiad. However, at this late stage of the game, you can take whatever cannons you can get, so we have the 9-inch Dahlgren. And then finally, we have our 32-pounder in front of that on the brakes there, on the block there. The 32-pounder back there served on the USS Potomac during the Mexican-American War. It was made in 1824, making it one of the oldest currently firing cannons in the world. So we were quite lucky to have that. We fired it off for special occasions like Veterans Day or Memorial Day or such like that. Those guys, a lot heavier. You don't want to get on the wall to load and fire it, so every time you want to load a shot, you're going to have to roll the whole thing back. Now, after you do it the first time, you fire off a shot, the whole weapon will actually roll back for you, so it does make it a bit easier, but you still don't have to worry about all that happening. So that's going to take an 8-man gun crew. It's going to take about 5 minutes to properly load the shot and also aim and fire. Now this guy right here is a lot simpler to load and fire, although the process is the exact same, minus the point back. This is going to take a 6-man gun crew, about 30 seconds to load and fire the shot. About a minute to properly aim. Now, each man was given a number, 1 through 6, and there was a gunner. Each man knew how to do the other man's job. That way, if one of them were to be taken out in combat or fall over due to heat stroke, you'd be able to fill in for their position. Eventually, you can shoot the gun with 1 man, so all those 6 people can be downsized to 1 person. Of course, this does change the load time. I can probably do it about 2 minutes, maybe about a minute and a half, going relatively full speed. All right, well, you guys want to go ahead and put on your steering and eye protection, up to you. I'm going to go through all the positions, and at the same time I'll be loading it, so you guys can see that process. All right. Before I head up there's a couple of little pieces here. So we have our vent prick right here, which is used to spike the back of the gunpowder and used to introduce a little bit of air. And then what I'll show you up here is this little friction primer. This will match. When you pull it, it's going to ignite the gunpowder, and that's how you get your propulsion system. All right. So, load it. Tension attachment. Load. Canister shot. 800 yards. Load. All right, so the man in the number 1 position is in charge of the sponge as well as the ram. The sponge douses any sparks, and the ram is going to ram the shot all the way to the back. Now, while that is happening, the number 5 position is going to run all the way to the back of your ammunition box right here and grab the shot and put it into their satchel. Running it all the way up to the front, once again, tending it to the number 2 position. The number 2 is then going to place their shot into the front of the muzzle and wait for the number 1 to ram it all home. The number 1 then swaps their sponge out for the ram and shoves it to the back. Once that happens, the number 2 and number 1 will step back and get ready to roll the cannon forward. Then the number 3, who is in charge of the vent brick, will stab the back of the shot and lock it into place. Then number 3, 1, and 2 are going to grab the weapon and roll it forward into position. At this point, the gunner is going to step in and properly aim the cannon. Each turn of this screw right here is a half a degree. You can also move it left to right ways. What happens, he's going to get the ready symbol and step back. Number 4 is going to step in, pull out their lanyard there, and the friction primer and shout ready. Moving the vent brick and placing the friction primer into the vent. He is then pushed slowly but surely back away from the cannon. All right, we are now ready to fire. Ready? Fire!
That was loud.
Here's the piece. Number 1, 2, and 3 are going to roll the cannon back. Number 2 is going to use their worm right here and a corrugated metal into the barrel and removing any debris left over. They're then going to dump the debris into a safety bucket. And then from that position, you are ready to fire another shot. Number 1 lets the sponge, douses it, remaining sparks, and you are ready to restart the whole process once again. All right. And wrap. So, there you have the long and very arduous process to load fire the cannon. All the things is wrong. You do need a bit of men. You have to go back and get this around every time. So there is quite a bit of time to load and fire this weapon. It is not perfect by any means, of course. But, all right. Any questions about that?
What were they primarily shooting at? Boats? Right?
For this guy, it would be infantry, softer targets.
So how many people could you take out with that?
Now there are a number of various ammunition types. So this guy right here is going to be your spherical shot, exploding shot. There's a little fuse inside right here that is lit at the same time you light the gunpowder. Once it detonates, it will explode a bunch of shrapnel in all directions, including the way back towards you. So you want to make sure you get it nice and far down range. And that will kill all of them right there.
What was the spread of that?
What was that?
The spread, like 6 feet, 10 feet?
It is about 300 yards. So quite a long way. This guy right here is going to be the most deadly of them. This is going to be the canister shot. This has 148 musket balls inside of it. And once it explodes, it's going to burst in a shotgun sort of radius, sort of a cone, and then annihilate anyone in their path. I heard about a general who witnessed a man get hit by some shrapnel by a canister shot. He was about 80 yards away, so from the parapet to that door right there, about that far from the cannon. And he said that all that was up to the man was his boots. So it does turn people into boots. Yes. And that has a range of about 100 yards to 300 yards. But you can detonate it right out the gate if you have the fuse cut as short as you like. Yeah. Any other questions?
What were the cannons that they would have they would heat up the cannonball?
Yes, so we did have a hot press. That's going to be used for burning down ships rather. And that can skip against the water and still be plenty hot to burn any wooden ship. All the transport ships were wooden back in the Civil War, so that would have been quite the menace for them back then. Well, we did have a furnace here. I don't know exactly where it was located, but we did have one here at record show.
And would those up here be primarily used for the ships?
Yeah, so those guys are going to be the heavy artillery. That's going to be your ship killers. It's going to be your fort killers. You know, you don't want to waste that one on a soft target like an infantry when you have your light artillery. You have a 12 pounder. All right.
Thank you.
Well, you guys are
Oh, I have one more.
joining.
Daddy,
One more round.
Okay.